Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back here to the Ray Esports Racing League here on Apex Racing TV. My name is Ron Mullins. Joining me in the commentary booth is Charles Michelle, and in the virtual production hall waiver, old buddy Josh Wilkie. Now, tonight you join us at the road course at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, an oddball track for sure, and one that Charles and I have experience with in the form of the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors series here on Apex Racing TV, who ran at this track, albeit on a different layout, a couple of weeks ago. But this track is still an oddball, and you can't really compare those two races because, as I said before, we're running on a different layout, and here we're running with the Formula cars first up tonight here with the Ray Esports Racing League. Now, Charles, as I said, we do have some limited experience with this track. You and our old buddy Tim Cox on the Weekend Warriors series actually ran at this combination last season with the Spec Racer Fords, but this is going to be an entirely different kettle of fish here with the Formula cars. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Ron. It's the South Oval layout, which means we're getting NASCAR 1 and 2 as the start of the lap, as opposed to the little chicane that we saw in the straight up road course that we did a couple of weeks ago. So basically, it's just it's going to be getting that good run down the front straight, and then trying to carry as much speed as you can through the first couple of corners before you get into the proper road course section. So it's not a lot of difference, but I think one of the good benefits is that at least gives these, when we encounter lap traffic, as we normally do with the Formula cars, gives them quite a bit of room to maneuver and get around each other. So hopefully that will keep the dramatics down for the race, and we'll end up having a really good race.
Now, I think lap traffic is going to play a huge role in this race. It's playing a huge role here in this qualifying session as Jake King nearly drifted down to the barriers coming out of turn number 14 here before he goes back onto the oval and heads his way through the South Oval section here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, coming through turns 1 and 2, dipping a wheel below the apron there. Even though we are running on the oval, this track, even on its normal oval configuration, feels more like a road course than anything else. I think I've heard drivers in real life describe the banking here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway as feeling like it's actually negative degrees of banking rather than a sort of positive camber, helping the NASCARs out whenever they run on the full oval. I think there's more camber in some of the corners here on the outfield section of the road course than there is on the oval itself, but that section is going to be huge. Coming out of turn number 13 that we're coming up to just about now, riding on board with Jim Brewster, who's currently sitting on the pole in the Formula V category. You come out of there, and And then in the Formula Vs, you're pretty much entirely flat out between now until the hard-braking zone of turn number 3, which is going to be a very important overtaking opportunity that we're going to see plenty of drivers use here tonight. So I think now that we're about halfway through this qualifying session, 7 coming up to 8 minutes now on the board of this 15-minute long session, I think we'll go through the championship results, because we are a decent chunk of the way through this season, start all the way back at the beginning of the month. So we have a decent idea as to who the main fighters and shakers are going to be here across all of the different classes that we have in store. And this is the standings in the Formula Ford category. You can see Jay King at the front there, the driver from New Jersey that I don't think had raced in the series for quite some time. He's standing tallly at the front of the board, 74 points on the board right now. Miles Crabbe and Zach Rivard, who are both very talented race car drivers in their own regard. Rivard, a star in Formula Fords in real life. Those two are locked steady in a nice championship fight as well. However, that gap may grow between now and the end of tonight, as I don't believe Rivard is going to be joining us this evening. Those three are the main ones that we've seen week in and week out here in this series, and you've got the likes of Mark Sherman, Yanchi Lin, Wayne Buttermore, Stevie Ray, Andrew Abbott, Charles Vaccaro, and Jeremy Schwank there in the top 10. And Charles, would you like to touch on the Formula V points?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Donnie Isley leads the Formula Vs. Actually, we've got a dead tie between Donnie Isley and Jim Brewster. Donnie in first place by virtue, I think he's got a win, and Jim has not. And so that's your 1 and 2. And then 4 points back is Andrew Wozencroft. Corey Heffron's only a point behind. Michelle Lynn rounds out your top 5, 41.7 points difference between the top 5. And then still very, very tight all the way down the grid. Josh Justice, Trip Isley, Brian Stasinski, Seth Bowman, Andrew Love rounds out your top 10. It's still very close all the way up and down through that top 10.
That Formula V class, week in and week out, whenever the Formula cars are racing here at the Ray Esports Racing League, is absolutely nuts. And at a track like this, where slipstreaming, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be a big factor, especially in the Formula Vs, I'm sure that fight is going to continue. It's pretty close right now in this qualifying session. I will say Andrew Love sitting at the front there now in the number 945 car, to 111.9. I believe that's the fastest time so far here with this evening's festivities. They're dipping into, I think the lowest lap time I saw was the 112.1 barrier in the Formula Vs. So Love really turning up the wick to break below the 1:12 barrier. Very nice lap time from him, and currently about 0.3 of a second ahead of Stephen Blethen as things stand at the moment. I will say the twin brothers of Stephen and Raymond Blethen, they're talking with some of the drivers here before this race started during the practice session earlier on this evening, doing a little bit of eavesdropping. Those two have experience running at this track in real life, so maybe we could see the Blethens have a little bit of an edge here in the Formula V fight.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you get some real world experience at a track, gives you a little bit more of a comfort feeling in the sim, and you know where you can push and where you can't. Because from everything we've heard, the sim is pretty realistic when it comes to accurately representing the car digitally. So it's very cool. So yeah, we'll see if that makes a big difference for them. I did want to bring up something. We were looking at the points earlier, and the name in P11, Megan Overstreet, who we have not seen because of her job change, normally runs the Ray Esports as well as the Weekend Warriors. So have to congratulate her, because I believe she got her SCCA license over the weekend. So congrats to Megan. I know she's going to enjoy that.
You took the words right out of my mouth there, Charles. I was going to mention that during the Weekend Warriors broadcast we had this past Sunday. It slipped my mind there, but Megan Overstreet, it was very celebrated in the Ray Esports community. It is a tight-knit family behind the scenes. These drivers know each other, love each other, and race each other with the utmost respect, but still race each other quite hard. They put on some pretty good action week in and week out, and if we didn't have some fantastic sponsors to help make this series possible, we won't have the fantastic racing week in and week out. Currently in the Formula Fords, Jay King is at the front, and the fantastic sponsor we have for the Formula Fords is Sim Motion. Sim Motion is not only the sponsor of the official Formula 1600 series here on iRacing, but is a proud partner of the Formula 1600s here on the Ray Esports Racing League. And now we're looking at a Formula V heading their way through the very challenging turn number 5. There's Corey Heffron, who's currently P number 4 here in this qualifying session. And the great sponsor we have for the Formula Vs that jumped on board about midway through last season is Corey Heffron going for a big spin and heading into the parking lot on the outside of the end of that back straightaway on the oval before he went into turn number 11. But Formula Vs, they have another fantastic sponsor as well, and that is trailbreak.com. In the world of racing, telemetry is important in understanding your car and your driving, hence why many people in the market take their butts on over to trailbreak.com. Trailbreak has been in the racing data world since 2000. Considering that's 4 years older than myself, I can vouch that's more than enough time for them to build a fantastic catalog of products. Whether you're in the world of karting, autocross, road racing, hill climbs, or track days, there's something there to help you go faster. To shop or just explore the wonderful products they have to offer, head on over to trailbreak.com. Trailbreak.com is a sponsor of the Formula Vs and the proud partner of the Ray Esports Racing League. And the namesake of the series, Stevie Ray, we're riding on board with him right now in the number 11 car, coming his way into this outfield section, went through turn number 4 and about to head into turn number 5. And now, Charles, I pointed this out not very long ago, but turn number 5, a real pain in the butt here on this racetrack, and oh my god, that was very close. Stevie Ray just saw his life flash before his eyes there, seeing that Formula V spun there as he went through turn number 5, but perfectly timing for me to say this, Charles. Turn number 5, one of the many tricky corners on this racetrack.
I mean, it's tricky because it's really one of the few corners that's got just tons of camber to it, lots and lots of banking in that corner. And so it's, when you're used to driving the car, on the flat parts of this track, like most of the rest of the circuit, then it just kind of trips you up because you don't really know how much speed you can carry through there if you see them working their way through. And then you end up, because it's on the elevation changes, you've got braking issues that you have to work with. So it's it's kind of the oddball because it's probably a little bit easier to handle, and by making it easier, it probably makes it more difficult, if that makes any sense. It's just different than the rest of the corners on the track. The rest of the track is basically flat. So then you just jump in here with a corner with a lot of camber, and it's got some grass on the outside, and you end up like Josh Justice, and you're backing your way into the infield there, and then riding yourself back to get back for another lap. And nope, he won't, because qualifying is already over.
Yeah, the checkered flag has been out for about 40 seconds here. It's looking very good for Jake King at a 104.230. He currently has less than a tenth of a second gap between himself and Miles Crabb. I will say Miles, very good driver. He has won championships here in the Ray Esports Racing League in the past. However, he's played second fiddle most of the time in those Formula Ford races. So I think now, with a very close gap between himself and Jake King, we'll have to see what happens there. That was a big hit for Josh Justice, slammed into the inside pit wall there, coming into turn number 14, a tricky corner where we may see some drivers hit the water barrels there on the inside. It would not shock me in the slightest. Now, one little feature that we have here for this broadcast is standing starts, so we're gonna have to gun through this grid as quickly as we can here before the start of this Formula race. Jake King is gonna start on the pole. Miles Crabb in P number 2. Stevie Ray will round out your only 3 cars in Formula Vs. Then moving over, actually no, that's a Formula Fords. Moving over now to the Formula Vs, we have Andrew Love in P1, Stephen Blethen in P number 2, Josh Justice in 3rd, Corey Heffron in 4th, Jim Brewster in 5th, Michelle Lynn in P number 6, Jacob Schilling there in 7th, Andrew Wilsoncroft from California in P number 8, that's Seth Spolman, Raymond Blethen, Brian Straczynski, Tom Laurie, Corey Hunter, Wayne Buttermore, Gary Kittle there in P number 15, Joaquin Effinger, and Murphy Nichols are going to round out your grid, with Murphy Nichols not actually setting a qualifying time in that number 5 car. We'll see if he will join this race in just a few moments time. Standing starts here, so it's not going to be the longest run until they hit the first corner here on this track. However, it's going to be quite a long time before they even think about getting onto that brake pedal to woe these cars up. So it's an interesting run, one that we usually don't see here from the Ray Esports Racing League, but it's one I'm looking forward to. You can see the lights illuminating, and the drivers are now on their way into turn number 1, riding on board Jake King at a pretty good start there. He's going to be leading them into turn number 1. However, for Miles Crab is going to have a fantastic run. He's going to be in that slipstream going around the first turn here on the oval, the first turn on this road course as well. Miles Crab actually slotting on his way towards the outside, trying to find any sort of way to get past him, looking for a move nearly around the outside heading into turn number 3. That would have been bold if he tried to go for that. Meanwhile, on the Formula V's, some side-by-side action as they head into turn number 3. It looks like a formation lap as they start this race there. All drivers trying to shuffle for position and try and make up ground while they still can. You can win the race on lap 1, however, you sure can lose it, but these drivers are taking it fairly easy so far. I'd say that I saw a big dive bomb there from Raymond Blethen heading into the tricky turn number 5, but as things stand at the moment in the Formula V's, it's currently Andrew Love leading them, and then up at the front, up at the north end of the field, it is still your pole sitter. Oh, and big crash there heading through turn number 10. A lot of drivers going for a slide there, ending up in the parking lot on the outside of turn number 10. Lots of drivers involved in that, one of them being Seth Spolman in the number 42 car. So right as I was saying that we had a fairly clean start, we see a multi-car Shamazel heading through turn number 10.
Yeah, it's, that's probably the tightest part of the track. I was going to mention the fact that, because, as we see a little spin there, Spolman, who was that? The other car might have been Blethen, I think, that was actually involved in the spin, Raymond Blethen. But, at least the NASCAR part of the circuit is plenty wide. So there's 2 wide, 3 wide, 4 wide racing to be had there, which I'm sure we'll do at some point in time during the race. The rest of the road course section of this is we're getting a replay here with this Effinger and
that's Buttermore on the outside.
Buttermore.
Ooh, running very wide.
Deep. Yeah, just a little deep. No harm, no foul. That's the trick. I guess probably one of the trickiest parts, one of the trickiest corners on the track, turn 3, because it is a very, very hard, probably the hardest braking zone on the circuit. So lots of chances to make passes there, but for whatever reason, getting through that safely isn't always possible. As we see Effinger slow there, it looks like the Murphy Nichols was around during that time. Maybe he's just got some issues with the car. We'll see here on the replay as we got just Effinger coming through there, coming through turn 5. Oh, no, it actually was Murphy Nichols and somebody else in front, and it was just trying to avoid the incident into the barrier. That's tough luck for Effinger. That might have been Buttermore as well. I think they're in the same area on the track.
I think that may have been Murphy Nichols involved in that. I didn't see Wayne Buttermore's car. I think he was clear of all that. However, he definitely drove by Joaquin Effinger's bruised race car after trying to make a evasive contact there, evasive maneuver there as they went through the top section here of this racetrack, coming out of turn number 7, hit the wall. Fairly big there. He's had to tow back to the pits. Not ideal for him. And we're going to take a replay of another incident that's happened. This is Wayne Buttermore's view of that Shamazel that happened in front of him here. Actually, this heading into turn number 10 here sideways. A nice drift there heading into turn number 10. One thing with this track, which is a fairly pervasive theme, is inviting corners. There's inviting sections of this racetrack. We're coming up to one right now, turn number 5, which, as you pointed out before we started this race here, Charles, it invites you in with that false sense of security, with that massive banking that they have through that corner. However, if you just overcook it a teeny tiny bit, you are going to be in for a world of hurt. And we've seen some drivers get caught out by the tricky nature of this track already, drivers spinning already, and I think Josh Justice may have been caught out by that not very long ago. He's dropped down like a rock, was running solidly inside the top 5, and is now down to P number 11. Andrew Wozencroft is a few cars up the road, and I think we're going to take a look at a replay to see what happened to Justice not very long ago. I saw him careening his way down the running order, heading into turn number 5, the tricky turn number 5. They have clipped the gravel there on the outside and goes for a spin mid-corner. So again, the very tricky pain in the butt turn number 5. I think that should be the track's, that should be that corner's official name, just pain in the butt corner, because it really is.
Yeah, I think you may be right. And, we've talked about that road course section. Turn 5, turn 3, the exit of turn 3 for whatever reason is difficult, I think because of the curbing when you're trying to get back on throttle. Once you get out of 5, though, you go up the hill through 6 and 7, and then you get the car gets light, but then you have to start braking for the downhill corners. So I think that might play into it as well. Maybe that's why we're seeing so many spins coming over the hill there.
Right now, we are starting to see lap traffic get, well, slowly but surely, we're going to see lap traffic play a role here in this race. It isn't the widest gap in terms of pace compared to the Formula Fords and the Formula Vs at a track like this. It was a 104 for our pole sitter Jay King and a 111, a high 111 for our pole sitter in the Formula Vs, that being Andrew Love, who still leads them with a 2.1 second gap as things stand at the moment. However, with fairly short lap times, I think percentage-wise, I'm not going to do the math in my head right now, but it's a decent percentage of lap time that these drivers have a difference of. So we may see lap traffic play a bigger role in this race than we usually see here, Charles.
Yeah, maybe. I think they came through 2 times through at Summit Point. So I think you may be something very similar to that, because these are very short laps, as you said, just a little over a minute for the fast cars. So, you know, if with a 7 second or so pace difference between the 2 classes, then yeah, you would think lap 6 or 7 we'll start seeing them working their way through the field.
And we actually got a message in the YouTube chat kind of asking about the difference between the Formula Fords and the Formula Vs. The Formula Fords are really the first step when it comes to like a kart racer trying to make their way into the world of open wheel to try and rise up the ranks, whether they want to get into the world of IndyCar or Formula One. Formula Fords are usually that first step because they are very similar to go-karts, but they are quite fast as well, and they're proving that right now compared to the Formula Vs, which I think probably have at most about 60 horsepower, which there's some shifter karts that produce about 10 horsepower less than that. So the Formula Vs, not the most powerful race cars in the world. However, they are a club racer's favorite. There are many racers nationwide that just run and love the Formula Vs. Meanwhile, with the Formula Fords, there's a bit more of a higher level of driving expertise it has to take to drive these cars around fast and hard, and we're seeing that right now with Jake King and Miles Crabb. They're going their way through turn number 10 with that killer curb I heard described as a ball of death during the practice sessions earlier on this evening. These two covered by barely any air. I mentioned during the qualifying session how Miles Crabb may have a fantastic opportunity to pounce right now with Zach Rivard not being here this evening, and Miles Crabb actually being in the field. Him and Rivard are locked steady in a nice championship fight, while Jay King is really pulling away with the Formula V championship lead. Crabb has a fantastic opportunity to make a big statement if he can get by Jay King here, which he may try and get done heading into turn number 3. Not close enough here on this lap, but these two are still very close, and they're catching up to Formula V lap traffic as well.
Yep, absolutely. And this is not really where you would want to pass them. Coming in through turn 5, obviously the track looks like the track's plenty wide enough. It's just because of the challenge with turn 5 might not be the best place. You obviously want to try and get most of these cars on the front stretch or through NASCAR 1 and 2 before you get into 3. But you know, nicely done. They managed to get all the way through, and Justice gave plenty of room on the inside to let them work their way around, and he can continue his race with Spolman and Hunter right behind him.
And we've got some pretty close fights all throughout this field. Surprisingly, though, the Formula Vs aren't as exciting, at least in terms of the fight at the very front of that field, compared to these Formula Fords covered by about 1/10 of a second, heading through turn number 2, and they've got even more Formula V lap traffic right in front of them, and they're going to catch them in that really pain-in-the-butt section as well when they come out of the oval and go into this outfield section here at the New Hampshire Motor Speedway road course. It is going to be tough. It has a street circuit-esque feel driving around this section of the track. The oval parts are very wide. It's a NASCAR track for a reason, a very wide circuit, many opportunities to try and negotiate with lap traffic, but then you go through this top section and it's a real pain in the butt, and we nearly saw Jay King lose it trying to get woed up for turn number 10. I saw a big snap for him heading through that corner. Now they're back into the infield section here on the inside of 3 and 4 on the oval, and right now we're riding on board with some of these drivers trying to negotiate. Oh my God, 3 wide coming through the final corner, and Jay King shaving the water barrels at the end of pit road. Jay King, I think I nearly saw his life flash right before my eyes. These drivers getting very flirtatious with the lap traffic and those water barrels, which are basically made out of the matter of white dwarf stars there, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. That was extremely close. I was going to say, you know, that's where patience comes into play when you're doing some multi-class racing, but that was really, really close. You know, it could have waited probably a second and cost him a little bit. And, you know, crowd wasn't going anywhere. There was no way around him. So, you know, but they made it all through. Nobody died. No water barrels were injured in the making of that corner. So, you know, we'll continue on racing.
I'm surprised we didn't talk before the start of this broadcast not very long ago about putting together like an over-under on if a driver was going to hit the water barrels, because Charles, you were part of a broadcast, as was our producer Josh, who produced that stream, where a driver slammed into those water barrels on the last lap of a Spec Racer Ford race. Hopefully these drivers try not to do that, because trust me, in my time driving on ovals in iRacing, I have hit plenty of those water barrels, and they are quite sticky, and usually it crashes your PC with the car twitching around after that contact is made. We're seeing Michelle Lynn and Jacob Schilling battling hard. They did not hit the water barrels, and now they're side by side coming through turn number 1. Michelle Lynn drifting up a teeny tiny bit. They nearly made contact heading through turns 1 and 2 there to begin this lap, and it looks like Jacob Schilling is going to clear her, I should say, heading into turn number 3, but still not over yet. Michelle Lynn nearly trying to go for the move, going for the switchback down the inside of turn number 4. Again, not close enough, and we haven't really talked about him too much here in this race. Jim Brewster is currently in P at number 2, about 3.2 seconds back of our leader, Andrew Love. He's put together a pretty good race so far in the number 933 car. He's a driver we always like to have a chat with, whether it be these Ray Esports Racing League races on Tuesday, or whether it be the Weekend Warriors as well. He is always a fantastic driver to have a chat with, a fantastic driver on the racetrack as well. Up 3 spots from where he started right now, so a pretty good race so far for Brewster.
Yeah, he's having a good run, and that's the reason he was up there tied in points, is because he's been consistent all season long, and he's able to have good finishes, even though he hasn't got that win. But with the Isleys not being here tonight, then this should vault him up into the lead of overall for the championship, and so he can afford to give up a spot here and there. But my guess is Jim's going to race hard. I will say this: Andrew Love just kind of checked out. He's 3.5 seconds up. He's having himself quite a race, as we see Jim going to the inside here on Heffron, making the move. That's really tight there, but everybody's safely through. So good job by Jim, and good job by Cordy to give him some racing room.
I think these drivers in the Formula Vs are very happy and very aware of the fact that these Formula Vs are tiny little flies when it comes to the racing world. They are not very big race cars, and we're seeing that play a role in this fight here, in that fight between Brewster and Heffron, and really all the fights in the Formula Vs. You always love to see these drivers. They race each other with respect, but they don't give any single inch out on the racetrack, and as a broadcaster, I absolutely love to see some hard racing week in and week out. But with those two battling hard, it has created a nice train as things stand at the moment. Brewster leading it, currently P number 2 in class, and then you have to go all the way back to Andrew Wozencroft in P number 7. Now Stevie Ray acting as a little bit of a disruptor there, negotiating the Formula V lap traffic. It's nice that Stevie managed to catch them at the best opportunity. If you're a Formula Ford catching up to the Formula Vs, he catched them on the oval, so now you can just pull away and not have to worry about going through the tightest section and the twistiest section of this racetrack without having Formula V traffic to contend with. Brewster and Heffron are going side by side heading into turn number 3. Brewster still holding off there in P number 2. However, with this train forming, I think it is going to be a massive fight here for those final podium positions in the Formula V class, with about 6 minutes left on the clock here, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get this nice 6-car pack here, and they're just really all racing about the same pace. You've seen the little battle up front, and the little battle up front between Heffron and Brewster actually kind of closed that gap up further back, as we usually see with these races. So yeah, Stevie did catch him at the right time, but even then he got kind of pinned on the outside and had to kind of work his way through that group, and it was a little hairy there for just a minute, but everybody safely through, and these guys can continue racing hard.
Everyone made it through without any being mortally wounded at all, and they still have all 4 wheels on their race car, so that is a good thing for sure. Andrew Wozencroft taking an interesting line there, as is Corey Heffron, nearly hitting the wall on the inside there, heading through NASCAR 1 and 2. They're going side by side with Brewster, heading into turn number 3. He's going to try and stick it around the outside, as he's done the past few times heading through that section, and is still stuck on the outside heading through turn number 4. Brewster may be able to clear him. Actually, no, Heffron is now going to have that inside line heading through the challenging turn number 5. Even though this section is wide and they have a lot of banking to work with, you usually don't see drivers go side by side, and that's a very good reason. Heffron is the victim there of Brewster going for a fantastic switchback and him actually clipping the curb. Now he's fighting for his life to try and hold off Shane Brewster, who's going for a spin. Stephen Blethen involved in that as well. I think those two were the only ones that made contact as a result of that schmozzle. Heading into turn number 10 there, that was kind of inevitable there, very close, heading through that section with little real estate to try and work with. We may have to take a look at a replay soon to see what in the world happened there, get a better angle of that schmozzle. Heading through turn number 10, it's allowed Corey Heffron to take P number 2 for now, as Jacob Schilling is now trying to get the move done on him down the inside. Heading into turns 1 and 2, Michelle Lynn now dicing it up there with Corey Heffron. This train that was at 1.5 cars has now just become 3. They're nearly going 3 wide heading into turn number 3 here. A lot of 3s in the span of about 30 seconds there. Corey Heffron still leading them, Jacob Schilling there in P number 3. And this is a replay of that chaos heading through turn number 10.
Yeah, Jim did a good job, just kind of clipped the curb a little bit, and we're going to get, just, too wide. And this, as we talked about, just coming over the hill, car gets light. You got to try and brake for the next set of corners, and just looks like Jim just maybe over rotated the car a tad bit. Yeah, just coming in the wrong angle, and just carried too much speed in there and got wide and made contact.
That is a shame to have that accident, especially so late on into this race. Only about 3 minutes left to go here, so about 3 laps left as well. Trying to do the math in my head. Yeah, it would be about 3 laps left to go here. Andrew Wozencroft now dicing it with Michelle Lynn. Those two, if they battle hard, it's going to allow Corey Heffron and Jacob Schilling to break away, and they're going side by side once again, heading through turns 1 and 2. The drafting these Formula Vs ever so strong, and we're seeing that put on full display here whenever they go through the NASCAR oval sections. It's still Corey Heffron in P number 2, still Jacob Schilling in P number 3, with Michelle Lynn and Andrew Wozencroft, the last 2 cars in that small mini train there, fighting for those final podium positions and the positions inside the top 5. Josh Justice putting on a pretty good recovery drive, currently in P number 9 in the Formula V class. Had that spin earlier on in this race, and it wasn't the spin that hurt him the most. It was just being stopped on track, waiting for everyone to drive by him, trying not to have an unsafe rejoin after that spin. That's what hurt him the most. However, he is a man on a mission and may try and get a move done here on Seth Spolman between now and the end of this. Those two covered by barely any air, heading through the challenging turn at number 10. That corner is really tricky, going downhill. The grip is falling away from you, and it feels like there's 2 apexes instead of 1 heading through that downhill corner. Josh Justice maybe trying to focus on having a good exit here, as we have a side-by-side fight for the Formula Ford lead. Miles Crabb has gotten the move done to take the lead in the Formula Fords with about a minute and a half left on the clock here, and they're going to be catching up to traffic again. You've got Heffron, Lynn, Schilling, and Wozencroft right up in front of them. They're going to be side-by-side heading through turn number 4 here. Miles Crabb is going to have to try and cut through these drivers, go 4 wide coming out of turn number 4. Are you out of your mind, Miles Crabb? Actually, I can't really say he's out of his mind, because it worked out like a charm. He now has a 6/10 of a second gap over himself and Jake King there in P number 2. However, with only a minute left on the clock and them taking the white flag in just a few moments time, this fight is going to be hot.
Yeah, it's going to be. And it's interesting, because I looked maybe 2 laps ago, and King had a 1.5-second lead over Crabb. So we might have to get Josh to go back and take a look and see if we can figure out why that happened. So Josh is saying he had an off track, so that would have been the reason to that he lost his lead. And so yeah, last lap coming up.
We are now on the white flag now, less than 30 seconds left on the clock. We are on the white flag. Jake King is going to be trailing Miles Crab. It's not looking good for him, though. They're going to be heading into the outfield section now, and unless we see some major heroics from Jake King, as we saw from Miles Crab last lap when he was negotiating these drivers, Jacob Schilling going for the move there to move into P number 2 in the Formula V category. Andrew Wozencroft following him. They're going to be 2 by 2 heading into turn number 5 here. Who's going to prevail in this fight? It's Jacob Schilling in P number 2. Heffron and Wozencroft going side by side, heading through turn number 5. Wozencroft sticking it around the outside. He's going to have a great run here, but Heffron is going to have the inside of turn number 10 here in just a few moments time. Actually, no, Wozencroft clears him. That was a great series of corners there from the California driver, but meanwhile at the front of the field, Miles Crab is going to exit the final corner, and he is going to win here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Jake King, with a heart-crushing mistake in the dying stages of this race, is going to come home in P number 2. Andrew Love, who probably had the most quiet race we've ever seen in the history of Formula V's, is going to end up winning it. Meanwhile, it's a photo finish for the final podium position. Andrew Wozencroft stays ahead of Corey Heffron to finish this race in P number 3. Michelle Lynn drops back to 5th there by the time they took the checkered flag. And wow, Charles, we were expecting quite a lot of interesting stuff to happen in this race at an oddball track layout. However, we weren't expecting 4 wide lap traffic negotiations, a very hard-fought fight in Formula V's, and a very clean race as well.
Yeah, it was a great race. It was very clean. I only really saw one or two incidents that weren't terrible, but obviously did change the complexion of the race just a little bit. But yeah, it was great racing. I love these little multi-class races with the Formula cars, and the oddball track just, I think, made it even a little bit better.
These Formula cars put on a fantastic show week in and week out. We've seen it ever since the Formula cars became a class here on the Ray Esports Racing League back last season, and ever since then they have put on some fantastic shows week in and week out. You always love to see it. So I believe all the cars have taken the checkered flag here, as we're seeing Michelle with a comedic jump there, coming from right to left there. That was, Josh, that was a fantastic camera angle there. I think we're going to take a look at a replay of Michelle Lynn, and we're going to see her line up for the jump here.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting the Spec Miata to do this. I wasn't expecting the Formula V to do that, but that was, yeah, a little nose heavy, but yeah, pretty good. Also, everything said there. It was a nice jump, stuck the landing. So 8 out of 10 for Michelle.
Bravo, Michelle Lynn. That was one of the hardest laughs I've ever had, the most genuine laugh I've ever had here on an Apex Racing TV broadcast. Take a look at another angle of the jump. It's one of the saddest jumps in the world. Michelle Lynn did not stick the landing. Oh boy, that is a very hard hit on the front nose. They're a very strong front nose. I guess it's made out of tungsten or something like that. She barely picked up a paint chip after slamming it. Back into the ground, Michelle Lynn in the number 44 car. Nice shot of her car after that jump, or attempt at a jump there on the outside of turn number 4. We're going to get the results here from this Formula race in just a few moments time here. And loading them up right now, and it's going to be Miles Crab taking the win here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Jake King ends up in P number 2, and Stevie Ray is going to round out the drivers in the Formula Ford category. Then in the Formula V's, it was Andrew Love with a dominant win. He ends up finishing 4th overall, top of the Formula V's. Then it was a very close fight behind Jacob Schilling and Andrew Wozencroft round out the Formula V podium. Michelle Lynn and Corey Heffron will complete your top 5. Then you've got the likes of Stephen Blethen and Josh Justice rounding out your overall top 10.
Yeah, Seth Bowman in P11, Corey Hunter in P12, Wayne Buttermore in 13th, Raymond Blethen in 14th, Jim Brewster with a late race pit stop, 1 lap down in 15th, Brian Stazinski, easy for me to say, in 16th, Tom Laurie 17th, Joaquin Effinger in 18th, Gary Kittle and Murphy Nichols round out your 20 car grid.
You know, Brian was actually mentioning in the other YouTube chat during that race how strong the Formula V community is in real life, and we also see that in the sim with quite a lot of the drivers running in the Formula V category. From a local note here, being a member of the Philadelphia region, Jeff Filipkowski was actually running in a Formula V at Pittsburgh, the other race track out there in Pittsburgh this past weekend, and put together a pretty good race himself. But some drivers put together some pretty good race in the sim, and I think we'll have a chat with some of them right now before we wrap up this first half of the broadcast. Charles, would you like to have a chat with one of the drivers we have waiting?
Well, let's talk to our race winner and Formula Ford winner, Miles Crabb. Miles, congratulations. So pretty epic battle from start to finish between you and Jake.
Yeah. I finally got a practice session where I could actually work on making the car drive like I wanted it to versus learning how to drive the car. Yeah, no, it was a great battle. I was kind of biding my time / he was actually kind of fast in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I was just trying to hang on to his coattails, and then we got in. The first time through the V's was no issue at all. I think I lost a grand total of 0.6 of a second. And then on the second, with, I don't know, 5 laps to go or something, I locked up coming at the end of the oval, and I thought, well, crap, that's it, because I fell back to about 1.8 seconds. But actually, at the end of the race, I had him by a couple tenths. So I thought I was going to catch him on the last lap and have to do something into that last little turn. But he got held up by the V's, and I got a run of a lifetime onto the front straight. And I don't know if the cameras were on that 4-wide pass for third place in the V's, but I saw a V in the air to my left and then 2 wide to the right, and I was like, "There's a gap. I can make it."
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we did catch that as you guys were working your way through. And we just was looking at the replay of Jake getting kind of caught up behind Jim Brewster there coming out of the last corner, which gave you a chance to make the pass, and you made it stick. So well done. Is there anybody you want to thank tonight?
Yeah, thank you all for broadcasting. Thank you, Stevie, for putting it on. Hi to everybody, Jessica, Ren, Mom, whoever's watching. I finally won one of these things. It's a good thing because I just bought one. So,
well, congratulations.
I'm going to go regional FF racing in a citation. So,
awesome.
This will be fun.
Oh, cool. Hey, does that mean I'm going to see you at Barber in August?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I for sure will be at Barber since it's 45 minutes down the road. And I'm going to try and do Road Atlanta and maybe AMP.
Well, there you go.
There you go. A lot of work before now and then.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations, Miles. We'll catch you. Are you going to run the Spec Miatas?
And probably be terrible, but yes.
All right, cool. We'll see you. See you in a few minutes.
See ya.
All right.
That was Miles Crabb, who ended up taking the checkered flag at the top of the Formula Fords. Not very confident in the pace that he's going to have in the Spec Miatas later on this evening. We're going to drag in our Formula V winner here, that being Andrew Wozencroft. A fairly quiet race, it must be said, from you, Andrew, but how was it out there?
Hey, everyone. No, it was fantastic. I love the V. I think it's unbelievably fun to drive. The group is amazing. I was just being patient, and I figured that there'd be some chaos, but it was a lot of fun.
And we saw you involved in that dramatic fight for those podium positions in the top 5 spots all throughout that race. Just talk us through being in the midst of that hornet's nest of Formula Vs.
Oh, it was awesome, but then you throw in the Formula Fords, and then it turns into chaos. They just took us going or exiting the oval, getting onto the back end, and that was interesting. And I saw the opportunity, so I said, I'm going to keep my foot in it. I don't know what that statement is either. I'm not going to take my foot off unless I see Goddard the checkered flag, right?
I do remember that quote from the ARCA race. I think it was at Daytona earlier this year. You always love to see that in a Formula race. But thoughts here on this oddball track here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway? What do you think of running here?
Oh, wow. I've only honestly done a lap, and I've already noticed how loose the car is. There's a lot of weight transfers, so we'll see. I think the first 2 laps are going to be a little bit interesting with everyone getting used to it, but once the group spreads out, it should be a lot of fun. We'll find a lot of close racing. It's a great track. For those watching, if you've never driven it, this is really only my second time driving it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot more complicated than it looks, but it makes for a lot of good racing.
And will we be seeing you in the Spec Miata race in a few moments' time?
Yep, I'm here. I'm just ready. I'm just about to jump into qualifying right now.
Alrighty, well, we'll let you go and qualify that Spec Miata car. Good luck in that race coming up later on this evening. Thank you for joining us, man.
No worries. Thank you again for everything. Thanks, Apex. Thank you guys. You're doing a fantastic job.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Thank you for the kind words. How's Andrew Wozencroft, the winner of the Formula, actually not the winner of the Formula Views. How's Andrew Love? I was going to apologize for confusing him with Andrew Love there. Andrew Wozencroft ended up P3 in that very interesting Formula race, and I think the Spec Miatas coming up in a few moments' time are going to be equally, if not even more interesting. Those cars much bigger, so we're not going to see four wide heroics that we saw from Miles Crab in that Formula race that we just had, but very interesting stuff that we have coming up for the Spec Miatas. The action is not over here. Coming up in just a few moments time, we have another 20-minute race with another exciting car, and hopefully you'll stick around with us. We'll be back after these messages.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome back here to the Ray Esports Racing League. Took a quick little commercial break, moving over now to the Spec Miata session here with tonight's festivities from the Ray Esports Racing League. Now, we're off the back of a fantastic Formula race that we just had here around this track. That four-wide action there with Miles Crab negotiating the Formula V lap traffic, I think is probably going to be our clip of the month here from this broadcast. That was absolutely awesome. But now, we're moving over to the Spec Miatas. Now, it's been a little while since we saw the Spec Miatas, that being on April the 16th at the Daytona Road Course, so I guess it's a little bit of a trend now. We saw them run at the Daytona Road Course a couple of weeks ago, and they put on a fantastic show there, and now we're here on another road course, albeit one pretty much entirely different from Daytona, complete opposite end of the East Coast, and complete opposite end as well on the racetrack spectrum, so to speak. So, Charles, what kind of action do you think we're going to see here from the Spec Miatas tonight?
Well, you know, I think it's going to end up more like the first race we saw them in, which was the Sebring Club layout. So a bit of a shorter track. Obviously, there's some open areas, but I think what we have to realize is for the people who are watching that actually do iRacing, this is not the current MX-5 rookie car. This is an older generation Miata. That's why they're calling it the Spec Miata and not the Spec MX-5 or MX-5 Cup. So older tower model, a little bit clunkier gearbox. So we had a nice money shift with somebody at Daytona. So there's a few challenges in just driving the car that these guys are going to have to kind of work through. But otherwise, it's going to be, I think it's going to be some really tight racing for the most part of the race. And so, you know, some door banging. So we should expect to be pretty tight from front to back, I think.
I get absolutely terrible flashbacks to the gearbox here in these Spec Miatas. I think I told this story in the previous two Spec Miata races that we've had so far this season, and I'll say it again for posperity's sakes. It was before the season started, before the season of the Ray Esports Racing League started, all the way back on April 2nd of this year. So in late March, there was a small little preseason Thunder race here from the Ray Esports Racing League, and the first race for that evening was in the Spec Miatas. And now, to be honest, folks, my sim rig is absolutely it's not good. It's the same one I've had ever since 2018 with a Logitech G920. The H pattern shifter I have barely works as a shifter, so I think my broken pair of glasses that broke around the same time, I think would probably work better than the H pattern shifter I have in my sim rig here in my house. But because I have a broken H pattern, I couldn't use it, so I had to use the paddle shifters, and I damn near blew up my motor about 17 times during that. It was only like a 20-minute race as well, so it was not an ideal showing from me. Fourth gear here in this car, especially compared to third, it's like you're changing transfer. It's like you're going from low range to high range while driving an 18-wheeler. It is absolutely absurd. Usually in this car you go from, I guess it would probably be about like 6,500 RPM down to like, I don't know, 5,500 RPM. You don't change a whole lot of RPM when you're going through first, second, third. Then you hit fourth, and it's like your engine turned off. If I didn't have my volume turned down as high as I did, I think I probably would have assumed that my motor had blown itself to pieces. So the gearbox is very strange here in these Spec Miatas. We saw it catch at some drivers so far this season. We may see that catch at some drivers here tonight as well. You see Seth Spolman coming out of the final corner. You're actually coming around that final corner. The small little kink coming around those water barrels is actually the final turn, and I will say a very striking livery there from Seth Spolman as he went around and actually towed back to the pits. And right now we're in this qualifying session, have about 3 minutes left to go, and as things stand at the moment, it's Miles Crabb, who wasn't confident in his chances here in the Spec Miata race. He's currently on provisional pole at a 111.4. However, the gap between himself and Tom Laurie in P2 is very close. So I think that fight in the Spec Miata just to grab the pole here for this race is going to be tense.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, and then we mentioned standing start. We just have to remind people and remind ourselves of that. So to add to all the gearbox issues, you got to start this thing from a dead stop. So that's going to make the start of the race extremely, extremely intriguing. But yeah, Miles, might have been a little bit of sandbagging in that interview, saying, "Yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that well," and then come out here and just set the pole time. But we just, like you said, a couple more minutes left in qualifying, so another lap or two for each of the drivers, and you never can tell. Maybe we'll get a fast lap out of these, and we'll shake things up a bit.
We'll just have to wait and see what happens between now and the end of the qualifying session, which is coming up in about 2 minutes time. And because we don't have a formation lap and a rolling start here in the series, we don't have enough time as we usually would to talk about the other sponsors that we have during that pace lap. However, I will bring them up during this qualifying session. The wonderful sponsor that we have here for the Spec Miatas, that being Grassroots Motorsports. Built for true sports car enthusiasts, Grassroots Motorsports has one mission in mind: to be your personal guide to the sports car world. Whether it be online at grassrootsmotorsports.com, in print, or at the track, the racers, mechanics, and car nerds at Grassroots Motorsports will take you behind the scenes of the racing world and teach you how to improve your car. Grassroots Motorsports has every single thing that you want to taste out of this hobby that we all know and love. Whether you want to hear stories about 1,000 horsepower track monsters or cool street cruisers built in a driveway, they have got you covered. Grassroots also has a collection of staff-maintained project cars and a catalog of articles breaking down the ins and outs of cars written in a garage with greasy hands rather than typed from behind a desk in a prim and proper office. If you'd like to read, learn, and be a part of the story, head on over to grassrootsmotorsports.com. Grassroots Motorsports is a proud partner here of the Ray Esports Racing League, and I think while we're in the dying stages here of this qualifying session, we may quickly take a look at the championship results as some of these drivers are about to start their final laps. We'll gun through this as quickly as we possibly can. And trying to get loaded up here real quick. It's Skip Rock Jr. at the front, 47 points. Yanshu Lin in P number 2, 43 points, barely in the air, separating those two at the front of the Spec Miatas. That's Miles Crabb in P number 3. He may be able to make some pretty good in-grounds here with this race. He's currently tied on points entering this round with Tom Laurie in P number 4, and Raymond Blethen is going to be rounding at your top 5. Only 1 point behind Crabb and Laurie, so very close in the Spec Miatas as well. We still have some races to go here in the Spec Miata category. However, that championship fight is going to be incredibly close, as it will be here. The battle for the pole and the checkered flag, I think, is out here in this qualifying session. So as I've been running my mouth talking about the wonderful sponsors that we have here, Charles, how is this qualifying session looking out?
I mean, yeah, it's we just saw Josh Justice just popped in with a 111.51, so he's just basically 200ths off of Tom Laurie. So now you've got 3 drivers up there with about 2.5 tenths separating them. So yeah, just look at the points. It's actually because of the fact that Lynn and the other driver, I forget his name now, but anyway, the top 2, or I'm sorry, Skip Brock is who it was, are not here. That's actually going to tighten the points up because you've got the guys that are in P3 and P4 are sitting here on the grid, P1 and P2 in qualifying. So that may make the championship battle that much tighter by the time this race is over.
And we've got the Blethens currently running next to each other on the racetrack and hitting the massive bump there on the inside of turn at number 11. We mentioned that killer curb. I think we called it the Sphere of Doom or the Sphere of Death. Either way, we just saw that play a huge role in those two horsing around after this, after the checkered flag has been at now for about a minute and a half here in this qualifying session. I think that's the first time in my year-long broadcasting career here at Apex Racing TV that I've ever said horsing around. However, I think that's the only way I could describe it. I'll tell you what, if I was in one of those race cars and I hit that curb on the inside of turn number 11, I think I would go for the, I guess it would be the Connect like 30 or something like that. I would probably break every single vertebrae in my back. The checkered flag has now come out in the qualifying session, and the drivers are lining up on the starting grid, and we're going to get the starting grid for you in just a couple of moments time here for the Spec Miata race. It's going to be Miles Crabbe starting from the pole, Tom Laurie in P number 2, Josh Justice in 3rd, Murphy Nichols in 4th, Stevie Ray, series admin, in P number 5. That's Seth Spallman, Andrew Rosencroft, Raymond Blethen, Stephen Blethen, and Ray Marino, a newcomer here to the series, rounding out your top 10. And that's Don Manning, Wayne Buttermore in P11 and P12. And just scrolling through and looking through the rest of the grid, a fairly short grid that we have here in the Spec Miatas. Joaquin Effinger in P13 is going to round at the somewhat small Spec Miata grid. However, just because we have 13 cars on the track, they still have 14 corners to negotiate here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. I just noticed that the start-finish line on the racetrack and the start-finish line coming down the pits are slightly off-center. If anyone just noticed that watching this broadcast, I apologize. That is irking me just as much as it is probably irking you, but nevertheless, we're waiting for the lights to come out, and after that, the drivers are going to be on their way, which they are now, into turn number 1. Managing the wheel spin is the name of the game, and that's not what Miles Crabbe did there. Now he's going to be side by side trying to fight with Tom Laurie at the very beginning of this race. They're going to be side by side coming their way through turns 1 and 2 here. Who is going to prevail in this fight when they head through into turn number 3 in just a few moments time? Now Josh Justice hitting that outside wall they're drifting at, coming around turn number 2, but it's Tom Laurie leading them heading through turn number 3. Some drivers shuffling for position farther in the back, and Miles Crabbe, it was just that small little chirp of the wheels. He had probably about a 4-foot long burnout when he left his starting position here on the start-finish line at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. However, that small little was a fraction of a second that he was spinning his wheels. That's what ends up costing him the lead.
Yep, absolutely. And we saw a couple of movers that way. Josh Justice, obviously, we just saw kind of smacking the wall there coming out of turn 2. Looks like he's still on the track and still racing. It looked like a pretty flat hit, so maybe didn't do any kind of suspension or wheel damage to his car. He can continue on during the race and try and get some of those positions back. No real movers and shakers yet. It's pretty standard up and down the board. Oh, as we see a car back there in the background, way offline. Couldn't really catch who that was.
Ooh, I'm not sure who that was, but right now we've got a fight between Murphy Nichols and Miles Crabbe going side by side through turns 1 and 2. I think it may have been Marina, the one that's dropping back. I just saw him lose a position to Wayne Buttermore to fall outside of the top 10. Miles Crabbe still holding on to P number 2. Murphy Nichols running at your podium as things stand at the moment in 3rd. And then we have Josh Justice and Seth Spallman who are trading blows heading through turns 1 and 2 on this lap. And Justice back into P number 4. He's going to try and look to see what he can do. I didn't get too big of a glimpse. I think we may get a small little glimpse. Yeah, there is some sizable actually side damage there on Josh Justice's race car there. So I think that may hurt him a teeny tiny bit, mainly going down the straightaways. I think maybe it was placebo there, because actually looking at the car now, it doesn't look like that car is terribly damaged. So I think he may have just scuffed the paint and have a small little wrinkle there. I don't think that's going to hurt him too badly going down the straightaways. What do you think, Charles?
No, I think you're probably right. I think I would be more concerned. Oh, as we see Stevie Ray around in the background there on the inside, clattering the inside barrier, and he's going to tow back to the pits. Like he just maybe caught a curb the wrong way and kind of got the car loose, and he just kind of lost the rear there. We go back up to the front. Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt him too bad. It being the right rear, generally you'd be more concerned about maybe wheel or suspension damage. But the car should at least turn straight and drive straight for the most part. So maybe down a little bit, but not horrible, I don't think.
fingers crossed for his sakes that any sort of aerodynamic damage isn't acting like a parachute that he's dragging right behind him. We'll just have to wait and see if he can hold off and remain in P4 between now and the checkered flag coming in about 17 minutes time. This is going to be an intense fight between these two. Miles Crabbe nearly going down the inside of turn number 10. That would have been bold to retake the lead of this race from Tom Laurie. You can see them clattering that inside curb and bouncing their way through turn number 11. That is incredibly hair-raising there, having the car just bouncing around. It's like they have pogo sticks for suspension here. That is absolutely nuts. Heading through that corner here. This track, we haven't really mentioned it so far. It's an older scan here of New Hampshire Motor Speedway. It has been repaved in real life. I think the scan is dating all the way back until before the 2010s here. So somewhat older scan here in the world of iRacing, and with an older tire model as well. These drivers have an old school race on their hands, and Miles Crabbe and Tom Laurie are going to be side by side heading into turn number 3 here. Crabbe on the outside, Laurie on the inside, and he holds him off for now. It wasn't looking good there for Tom Laurie as he ran wide heading into turn number 1 and 2 at the very start of lap number 4 here. But with those two battling hard, Murphy Nichols is there to pounce if they come to blows.
Yeah, absolutely. He gained a half second on the two cars in front, just running a line by himself. So those guys are going to have to be very aware of the battling, and they got to get the passes made quickly and get back in line. Otherwise, it's just going to invite that many more cars up there. Josh Justice looking like he was looking racy and wants to get back up there and join that group.
And Justice has actually broken away from everyone else. There was a point where he was involved in that nice fight between himself and Seth Spolman, currently in P5. However, he has broken away from those two and currently has a nice buffer as things stand at the moment. Has about a second and a half between himself and Spolman behind, and then a decent gap as well to make up if he wants to catch up to those front three. However, with the battling that they've put on so far through this race, I wouldn't say that is entirely out of the picture between now and the end of this. Miles Crabbe nearly attempting a bump and run heading into turn number 3. That would have been a strange move here in the Spec Miatas, but Miles Crabbe still holding off on P2. Now I think he's more worried about Murphy Nichols challenging him to slot into P2 than Crabbe is worried about trying to get a move done on Tom Laurie to take the lead of the race. They're still very close, separated by less than a second, going around the top section of the track, about to careen their way into turn number 10. I always love the camera angle that we have when they come through turn number 11. Just seeing those cars bounce around, it is absolutely absurd. It's like these drivers are basically running in a waterbed. They're bouncing around so much. It is insane. We're seeing a battle now between Blethen and Spolman. Currently, Raymond Blethen in P7 has the fastest lap of the race right now, so I think this is going to be a dogfight between these two. About to start lap number 6 in just a few moments time, crossing the start-finish line now, and we may see him go side by side heading into turn number 3 in just a few moments time. Actually, no, Blethen backing off a teeny tiny bit, lifting off the gas early. They're trying to avoid any sort of contact or an attempted bump and run heading into the NASCAR 1 and 2.
Yeah, he's kind of biding his time a little bit. I'm sure he's probably seeing what he's going to need as far as a run in order to make that move going down the straight and coming into turn 3. So just being a little patient and taking his time. I think with what we said was this is their home, the Blethen's home track. So they're probably quite familiar with it, and he's probably just kind of figuring out what this Spec Miata is going to be able to do for him.
They know this track like the back of their hand, and they're trying to use that experience to their advantage. I believe Blethen still has the fastest lap of the race right now. I may have to take a look at my live timing screen to fact check myself to see whether or not that is the case. Actually, no, it's another Blethen, that being Stephen Blethen in P5. He now has the fastest lap of the race at a 1:11.935. So that's a very competitive lap from him, much faster than the leader of the race right now, Tom Laurie, who I think at this stage is kind of acting like a rolling roadblock, currently only a tenth of a second, separating himself and Miles Crabbe at the start of lap number 7 here. So Tom Laurie may be itching in his boots to try and pull away. They're nearly bump drafting their way through turn number 2. Now Crabbe trying to look for the move down the inside into turn number 3. Battle last late breakers. Laurie goes a little bit deep there. However, he's going to have that outside line coming around turn number 4. They're still going to be side by side. I think neither of them are going to back at when they head into turn number 5 in just a few moments time. Will Laurie clear him heading into the corner? No, he does not. Crabbe trying to stick it around the outside, and he can see see Nichols nearly actually making contact with himself and Miles Crab. They're heading through turn number 5. They are very lucky to get away with that. Josh Justice is saying thank you very much. He was running a no man's land. Now he's right to the back of Murphy Nichols to try and claw his way into the podium places. A driver that started this race in P number 3, running in P number 4 now, is trying to snatch his way back into a podium position. Murphy Nichols is really struggling right now. Went off track and actually cut the corner a teeny tiny bit heading through turn number 12, and also had a big curb whack heading through turn number 11 right before that. So I think Murphy Nichols may be feeling the pressure here soon.
Yeah, I think so. I think that little contact he had with Crab coming through turn 5 is kind of maybe shook him up for just a minute. So he's going to have to get back in his rhythm and see if they can make up that gap. There's about a 1 second gap now between Crab and Nichols, P2 and P3.
This race is far from over. In fact, we're not even at the halfway mark in this race. As I take a small little break there to really catch my breath. Andrew Wozencroft currently running in P number 8 there, and this is actually Blethen getting a move done to move up a position. This was a fight between himself and Seth Spolman heading into turn number 3 here. Fairly textbook move stuff down the inside and clears them before they get into the following corner of turn number 4. Nicely played there from the driver, who, as it stands at the moment, is currently slotted in P number 6. So we're going to try and cut back live action here in the not too distant future. That's a big snap there from Raymond Blethen heading into turn number 5 there. We're seeing more drivers, even in the Spec Miatas, get called out by that challenging pain in the butt corner. Now, I'm not sure if I can say pain in the ASS there here on Apex Racing TV. In fact, I probably used that term before here on broadcast. However, I think that both terms are very fit to describe turn number 5, because we have seen quite a lot of drivers that got called out by that corner so far, and I don't think that is going to change. Miles Crab has now gotten the move done to get ahead of Tom Laurie here. So for the first time ever since the very beginning of this race, just past the halfway mark now, Miles Crab has now retaken the lead. However, this fight is far from over. The front 4 right now currently separated by less than 1.2 seconds. This is going to be incredibly close between all of these drivers, and with a small little flat out blast before we take the checkered flag here, I think we could even see a photo finish here. Charles, how close do you think this fight is really going to be?
Yeah, it might be pretty close. These guys are racing really hard up front, and they keep swapping the position, and that's just keeping those guys that are in 3rd and 4th just hanging on the tail of that group. And yeah, so I was kind of watching Crab and Laurie with that move that he made. I think it's very similar to what the move that Blethen made over Spolman. Kind of judged that the lap before and got everything, kind of got everything figured out, and then made the move the next lap. So well done by everybody so far. And yes, now we got Justice looking for P3. He's got to run on the outside, and he's going to try and late break coming down into turn 3. And still side by side coming through 3, coming out, still together. And so now Nichols has finally cleared him, and so back in 3rd. And so Justice is going to have to reset and look for another chance.
And this is a move that Miles Crab did to take the lead of the race around the outside. It looked like it was going to go for it. Actually gave him a bump there heading into the corner. So bump and run, fisticuffs breaking out here in the Ray Esports Racing League here in the Spec Miatas. I think that was fair. It definitely wasn't intentional there from Miles Crab. It looked like he was going to go for the move around the outside. Tom Laurie kind of snapped across them there a teeny tiny bit. It wasn't a malicious move from either of those drivers. However, making a teeny tiny bit of contact, that it makes a world of difference. As things stand at the moment, about 0.7 of a second separating Crab and Laurie right now. So maybe we could see Miles Crab start to pull away. He's like, hey, I did not like seeing a car right in front of me. I'm going to try and pull away and just drive off into the sunset. However, if we see a mistake from the likes of Joaquin Effinger, who's currently in P number 10, we could see lap traffic, even though it's a single car race here and not that much pace difference separating a lot of these drivers. We could see lap traffic play a role here in the Spec Miata finish.
Yeah, still opportunity for a couple of those lap down cars to get involved. But so far everything seems to be going okay as we're looking here at Randy Marino. And I'm just going to mention that Stevie Ray's always good to give us little tidbits of information about some of the new guys that come on. And Randy is a sim racer to real world racer. He's actually running in the MX5 Prodigy series. So welcome into him, and I think he's now kind of sizing up the level of competition that he's going to be dealing with during the season.
Well, I think he's roughed up some drivers as well. We're going to get that great shot heading through turn number 6 and 7 there. I already see a little bit of front end damage there, so I think Randy Marino may be facing not a trial by fire, but more of a trial by firing squad in the number 4 car. Very wide heading through turn number 11 there. Actually clipped the grass a teeny tiny bit heading through that corner, and ooh, very close again before he went into turn number 13 here. But already it shows you the level of competition we have in this series. Marino currently in P number 9. I think that front end contact, which is fairly substantial, looks like a very fat man stat on the other hood of Ray Marino's car. I'm 250 and about 5'11" myself, so I have no room to talk when it comes to people being big, but that's kind of what it looks like on the front of Marino's car. That's probably going to be slowing him down quite a lot there, going down the flat app list here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. So he is currently in P number 9, essentially in no man's land. However, you always love to see some new drivers come into the series. Miles Crabb is not a new name by any means, but he is new up towards the front. He was running for second for quite a long ways. Then about 10 minutes into it, he got the move done on Tom Laurie, made a little bit of contact, it must be said. However, since then, Miles Crabb has driven off into the sunset. He currently has a 1.6, nearly 1.7 second gap between himself and Tom Laurie. So Miles Crabb, who's kind of downplaying his chances here in these Spec Miatas, is just driving away now, coming up to about 5 minutes left to go here.
He is, and he's catching Effinger about 2 seconds per lap, so he will have to deal with him before it's all said and done. So maybe he gets him clear to the right, in the right area of the track, and he can make that clear. Ooh, it was almost a little contact there between Laurie and Nichols. I think Laurie's braking a little bit earlier. I think this is a couple of times we've seen the car behind just kind of get caught out a little bit. So we'll see if Crabb can get clear of Effinger easily, or if it's going to bunch him back up, if he's going to lose time trying to get through.
And we'll see if lap traffic may play a role in at this point it's more of a fight for the final podium positions here in this Spec Miata race. Joaquin Effinger is currently not very far up the road right now. Miles Crabb coming around the final corner, turn number 14. Meanwhile, you've got you have Joaquin Effinger, who's currently going through turns 1 and 2 as things stand currently. So I think he may be in the clear right now, Miles Crabb. He can afford to get held up quite a lot. Still about 1.6, 1.7 seconds separating himself and Tom Laurie. So unless some major disaster befalls Miles Crabb, he is going to be driving off into the distance between now and the end of this, which is coming up in the not too distant future. Only 4 minutes left on the clock here. This is a fight we need to keep our eyes on. Tom Laurie currently running in P number 2. Murphy Nichols, who spent a vast majority of this race in P number 3, and Josh Justice actually dropping back a teeny tiny bit, currently separated by about 0.8 of a second between himself and the final podium position runner of Murphy Nichols. So we could see Justice falling back, but nevertheless a 2-car fight between Murphy Nichols and Tom Laurie for P2 and P3 in this race. I think that is going to be a pretty good one to watch between now and the end of this, Charles.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that battle is starting to heat up. Again, Justice has dropped off a little bit, so maybe the little damage that he had at the start of the race is affecting his ability to get the most out of the car. As we see Murphy Nichols front end, looks like it's been through the wars, and as well as Tom Laurie's rear. So yeah, it's it's a couple laps left here. Maybe this might be 3 to go when they crossed last time. So we'll see if anything can happen here in the last 3 laps.
anything could happen between now and the checkered flag. We've seen it from the series, regardless of what cars are running in, whether it be the Spec Miatas that we have here for this season, whether it be the Formula cars that we had earlier on this evening, or whether it be the Spec Racer Fords that aren't with us here tonight. However, we'll be back in the not too distant future. Anything can happen, and we may see a lot of drama befold between now and the end of this. Joaquin Effinger, I will tell you, is not a long ways off from the front end of Miles Crab. You can see him heading through turn number 11 now. So Miles, I think, will catch up to him. We'll have to wait and see where he catches up to Miles Crab. Regardless of where he catches Joaquin Effinger, I don't think it's going to be as sketchy as we saw from him going 4 wide during the Formula race earlier on this evening. However, Miles Crab wants to have a clean run between now and the end of this, which is coming up in about 2 laps time. Now, less than 2 minutes left to go on the clock. Miles Crab with an over 2-second gap to Tom Laurie there in P number 2. The only thing standing between him and a surefire win is Joaquin Effinger, who I'm sure is going to be very respectful and try and get out of the way of Miles Crab here in the not too distant future. You can see him heading through turn number 4 now, maybe pulling over to the side of the track, and actually no, getting himself lined up there for turn number 5. I thought Joaquin Effinger was just going to let him by well before they got into the meat and potatoes here of this outfield section. There is no section to rest here on this track, and I think these drivers are kind of glad that we're running on the layout with the South Oval, because as we saw from the Spec Racer Fords a couple weeks ago when we were running on the full Roval layout with the small chicane there on the inside of turns 1 and 2, there's usually no rest here at this track. There's still a very, actually Miles Crab getting caught at quite a lot there, so Joaquin Effinger not really showing the respect we usually see. This is going to be close heading around the final quarter. Miles Crab going to stick it around the outside here. May not be too happy that Joaquin Effinger not doing his best to avoid to Miles Crab, the leader of this race, for the past 10 minutes. We are on the white flag, so it's 1 lap to go here from the Ray Esports Racing League at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. It's Tom Laurie in second, and he has a decent gap between himself and Murphy Nichols, about a half a second separating those two right now, actually stretching its legs out a little bit more now. So we may, unless Tom Laurie gets held up by Joaquin Effinger as well, we could see that fight not really transpire the way we may have had in mind. Ooh, this is going to be very tight heading into turn number 5, going around the outside, and we nearly saw Murphy Nichols and Joaquin Effinger come to blows coming through that section. That was very close. They actually got away with it fairly scot-free. Miles Crab with a little bit of damage on the front end of that Spec Miata car. He's put together a pretty good race heading his way through the bumpy turn number 11 for the final time before he goes into the infield section. Right now, he is driving off into the sunset, took the lead of the race with a bump and run maneuver heading through turn number 3 very early on into this race. And now Miles Crab is going to pull off the double after getting a move done. 10 minutes in, Miles Crab wins here in the Spec Miatas at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Tom Laurie ends up in P number 2 with Murphy Nichols going to be rounding out your podium in P number 3. And Miles Crab, I have to applaud the man for driving. Ooh, I had some beating and banging after the checkered flag. Hopefully these drivers aren't upset with each other. We could see, maybe we'll see some drivers. Ooh, actually some more contact there. I think that was Raymond Blethen and Joaquin Effinger that are glued together heading through turn number 3 there. So Josh Justice making a little bit of contact there with Murphy Nichols. Those two, I think, were the ones going side by side at the very start of this race when Justice ran wide and hit that outside wall of turn number 2. But getting back on topic and talking about our winner, Miles Crab, that was a very commendable performance for him to just drive off into the sunset in a race where we were expecting for the field to be quite close.
Yeah, I mean, and it was until the last few minutes of the race. It's Miles did a great job of just, once he got out front, just extending the gap, running clean, and not making any mistakes, and was able to stretch the gap over Laurie. Laurie obviously did a great job to finish second. And then it was a good battle between Nichols and Justice. I know I was on the last lap. I saw Justice probably had the car up about 30 degrees from that curb, the curb of death there in turn 10. So it was a very intriguing race. Yeah, not quite the photo finish that we always hope for, but still a great battle on track during the race. Good fights for positions up and down the field, and so very enjoyable, I think.
I think overall, a lot of stuff to talk about throughout that race. Just a strategy of trying to keep it clean, keep it out of the barriers, and keep it out of your competitors was nice to see throughout this race. A challenging circuit for sure, and I think it put on some pretty good racing as well. And we're going to get the results here in just a few moments' time from the Spec Miata race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Miles Crabb ends up taking a dominant win, gets the double as well. One in the Formula Fords, one here in the Spec Miata. That's Tom Laurie there in P number 2. Murphy Nichols is going to round out your podium in third. That's Josh Justice in fourth. Stephen Blethen and Raymond Blethen finishing nose to tail. We could see them. This, I think, is a replay of them going side by side and battling hard during the practice session, I believe, if I may be wrong there. That's actually, there's them going side by side currently. So even after they took the checkered flag, they're still trying to race each other quite hard. They're going to do what they're going to do. They have experience around this track, so they're not going to stuff it into each other. They end up in P5 and P6 here from this race. That's Seth Spolman in P number 7, Andrew Wilsoncroft in P number 8, Randy Marino, the newcomer, in 9th. Joaquin Effinger ends up in P number 10, Wayne Buttermore, and Don Manning will round out your 12 cars to finish on the lead lap. Then Stevie Ray, after that spin and incident in the early stages of this race, is our 1 DNF, 16 laps down in P number 13. So those are the results here from this Spec Miata race, and I think we have some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. Charles, who do you like to have a chat with?
Let's talk with our race winner again, Miles Crabb, and we'll just go ahead and Miles. All right, so level with me. Were you sandbagging in the first interview, saying you didn't think you had a good car, or were just what's going on there, man?
No, I legitimately thought I was not going to be good because if I don't practice the synchro cars, I just put auto clutch on and deal with it. That's why I was just dog slow off the start. So, I was like, well, this has got enough of a banking. They're just going to pull away from me. And then I was 2/10 faster than everybody in qualifying. Didn't expect that. I didn't know I was not sandbagging or anything. It was just, I don't know, it worked. A large portion of my lap time was I've driven enough oval stuff at this track to know that the second lane has more banking than anywhere else. And a lot of people were trying to do the shortest routes the fastest, and that's not the case here. It's really, you kind of hook the little seam between the first and second asphalt lanes, and your car turns, and you can go full throttle from about the quarter mark through the corner. But anyway, a little bit dirtier than I wanted it to be. Me and Tom were racing pretty good, but he had a habit of kind of fading to the inside, going into, I guess it's 3. And then coming back over onto me as I'm already on the brakes, full attack. And he did it on like lap 7 or whatever, and I was kind of like, I'm not getting out of the way this time, sorry. And like I'd easily made the corner, and so I didn't feel too bad about it. But I'd rather have passed him into the bowl that the 2 laps before. But it's Spec Miata racing.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we did see Laurie had like he was maybe braking a little bit earlier in 3, and I think he had some contact also with Nichols once you were able to clear him. So, hey, so congratulations, another great win. And so I think we're at Homestead next week, so we will see you around there for for a little draft party probably. Absolutely,
and it should be these cars in Spec Racer, so that'll be fun. Maybe I won't just drive away like at Daytona in Spec Racer. I'd actually prefer if it was a draft fest.
Well, last season we saw Skip Brock come from 8/10 down on the last lap to win. So I don't think you're going to do some work to drive off in that race, I think. So, but congratulations, and we will see you next week.
Absolutely. Thank y'all for broadcasting. Thank you, Steve, for putting it on. And Jessica will be in there in a second to help you deal with the dogs. I can hear you over my headset.
All right. Thanks, Miles.
Later.
And that was Miles Crabb getting the double here tonight at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. And we'll bring in Josh Justice to have a quick little chat before we wrap things up. Josh, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. An interesting race from your perspective, had that contact at the very beginning of it, and we heard that you picked up wheel damage from that incident. So just talk us through your race here at New Hampshire.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. I picked up wheel damage, and I had more speed through the turn, and I had a run. I was set up on the outside, and from where I was sitting, obviously I haven't had time to go back and watch the replay. It just seemed like I just got run up the track into the wall. I don't know. I think I saw on the commentary you just said that Roy may have had contact with Nickel, and maybe that's why Nickel ran me up. I don't know. But very frustrating because obviously that then put me back in like 5th place, and I had to get around 7th. And then I was like 2 seconds back, and I caught them. So I caught that pass. I just could not get around Nickel at all. I only had maybe 2 real opportunities to pass him in the race, and he defended well both times. I tried to get him in turn 3, and I was alongside him in turn 3 at one point, and he just somehow managed to make it stick around the outside and stay in front of me. And I don't know how he pulled that off, because I thought I did a really, really good job of taking the inside there. But he just outbraked me and somehow made it stick around the outside without, just driving off and going into the tire area. Because that's totally what I was expecting him to do. When he went through me into the turn, I totally thought he was just going to slide right through and go into the tire area. But he managed to hold on, and that was really my best opportunity to pass him. After that, I think I just kind of burned up my right front a little bit. When you got wheel damage, I still had a pace, but I think it was causing more tire wear. And toward the end, my lap time had just fallen off, and I just never really got a good run at him again.
Well,
I'll tell you what, it was a valiant effort, it must be said, to claw up with that damage, because I know wheel damage, especially with this old tire model here in iRacing, is not pleasant, but nice to see you put on good recovery drive, and would have been good to see what you could have done if that incident didn't happen. Next time out, we're going to be at the road course at Homestead, Miami, so how do you think that race is going to be in a week's time?
Well, last season we were running the newer MX5, and I actually won the race at Homestead, beating out a real world MX5 Cup driver that we have visiting us in the series that week. So I'm definitely hoping to repeat that. I think I've got a pretty good handle on this version of the MX5. It's the one that I started out with in iRacing when I was a rookie, and it was a rookie car, 10 years ago or whenever that was, a long time ago. So it's coming back to me.
Well, fingers crossed you're going to be up towards the front of the field in that Homestead race. You always put on a good show whenever you're battling for the podiums or battling for the win, Josh. Josh, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Obviously, I was just at Howard for the Super Tour and realized driving my Spec Racer. Obviously, everybody who worked on my car and transported my car, all the people involved in race lab and all that, really appreciate that. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out well for me. I had some issues with turn 1 at Howard and wound up backing my car into a tire barrier. And we're at Eagle Canyon this weekend, go hard at work in the shop, getting the car back in working order for myself and for some other people. And so very appreciate that.
Oh, you always gotta thank the mechanics. I know a lot of the racing stuff that I did wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for my dad being the great mechanic that he is. So Josh, thank you for joining us. It's a shame that he had that contact so very early on, but fingers crossed you're gonna come back better and stronger next time out at Homestead. Thank you for joining us, man.
Yep, appreciate it, and I certainly hope so.
Fingers crossed. I'll keep my fingers crossed on your behalf. That was Josh Justice who ends up this race, a valiant effort, it must be said. He ends up finishing this race in P number 4, just barely missing out on a podium here. But Charles, we're heading to Homestead in a week's time. That is going to be a very interesting race on another road course here. It's a 3 road ovals here from the Ray Esports Racing League season for season number 11. So how do you think that race is going to be in a week's time?
I mean, this like I mentioned, the Miles, the Spec Racer race was Skip Brock Jr. coming from 8/10 back as they were battling. It was him and Overstreet and another driver. I don't remember who the third driver was, but they were battling to see who was not going to be first. And then Skip, with just a great run, had that massive draft that the Spec Racers put out to come from 8/10 of a second back, coming onto the oval to win the race at the line. And then the Spec Racer race, in the MX5 race, as Josh just mentioned, we had Celine Roland double podium at Daytona this year in the MX5 Cup. Was in the race and put on a good show, had lots and lots of speed, but ended up with some issues and allowed Josh to get the victory. So yeah, more of the same of that, hopefully, is what we'll get, and because it was 2 really, really good races.
Well, it's always great to have some fantastic real-life racers here in the Ray Esports Racing League. If you want to learn about the world of real-life racing, you should check out the Inside the SCCA podcast as well, one of the wonderful sponsors here from the Ray Esports Racing League. Episodes of that show drop every single Friday, so you can listen to them on your way to the racetrack. Homestead in a week's time is going to be really, really intense. A draft fest for sure. That is going to be awesome. It gives you more of a reason to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss a thing here on Apex Racing TV. But as for this week's broadcast of the Ray Esports Racing League at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, I think that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Charles Bichelle joining me in the commentary booth, and Josh Wilkie doing a fantastic job working all the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you all again in 1 week's time.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.